Your Art Unlocked is produced by Art UK, the online home of the UK's public art collection. This podcast is supported by Bloomberg Connects, the free arts and culture platform that provides access to over 1,300 museums, galleries, and cultural spaces around the world. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
I wonder why Susan Boyle's been depicted as a square sausage.
No, I don't get that either.
It's a bit unusual, isn't it? She's such a good singer. It's very lively the way that the letters have been drawn, isn't it? It's like they're sort of dancing over the page. It's interesting, it's only the one bit of colour with the blue and white flag at the bottom as well. It kind of draws your eye in.
Have you ever thought about what signs, symbols and cultural figures have come to represent your country? Do you know how and why they came about? If so, do you think they're positive reflections of your nation's story and identity, or cliched stereotypes that are hard to shake off?
You know, there's Oor Willie, Your Willie, Aberdeen's Willie.
I remember reading them when I was young. I loved those books. Every Christmas it was either the Bruins or Your Willie that we got.
In the collection of Aberdeen Archives gallery museums in the northeast of Scotland, you'll find a playful and perhaps provocative artwork. It's called Alphabet of Scotland by Donald Urquhart, an artist who was born in Dumfries but who has since lived and worked extensively in London. The work challenges us to consider what or who represents Scotland, although be warned, its tongue is firmly in its cheek.
I don't think I've ever been to Urquhart Castle, have you?
Aye, that's on Loch Ness, that's why it's
with Nessie in the
Nessie,
background.
Oh, I like the, what was the baby broon called? I see she's got a umbrella.
The bairn. Was it not the bairn?
The bairn, aye. Look, she's got an umbrella next to Ma and Pa Broon underneath the Jack Vitriano.
Oh, yes.
That's quite clever.
It is.
If you were making an Alphabet of Scotland, what or who would you include? The Loch Ness Monster, or Whiskey perhaps, or William Wallace and Dolly the Sheep maybe. Of course, your choices might depend on if you're Scottish or not, but also how old you are, and plenty of other factors.
John Laurie, he played that very popular character in Dad's Army. What was his name again? Fraser, was it?
Oh, okay. There's Robert Burns at the top as well. He hasn't even got his name written because he's so famous.
Yeah, I noticed
we just
that,
need his face, and that's all we need for Auld Lang Syne.
In Urquhart's alphabet, each letter is accompanied by a black cartoon-like drawing of a figure, real and imagined, which lean towards pop culture, kitsch and the darkly comical. And you will find Nessie here. The poet Robert Burns, arguably one of the most famous Scottish people of all time, is represented by the A for Auld Lang Syne, the song he wrote down from tradition and expanded in 1788, while 1970s child star Lena Zavarone symbolises the Z. Between these, Urquhart takes us on an unexpected journey through various symbols of Scotland, with several subtle subversions throughout. I'm Shane Strachan, and in this episode of Your Art Unlocked, a podcast that brings to life some of the more unexpected objects in museum collections, I'm going to explore a work that looks simple, but which actually says quite a lot of complex and funny things about national identity. This is your art in your museums and galleries, so let's get to know it a little better. Now, we know this is a podcast, so before we get started properly, if you want to look at this work for yourself while you listen, head to Art UK and search for Urquhart Alphabet. That's URQUHART. Like his work, Urquhart himself is difficult to categorise. He was born in Dumfries in the early 60s, but moved to Glasgow as soon as he could. Having failed to get into art school there, he left Scotland for London in the 80s. He hit the capital's camp club scene hard, hanging out with performance artist, club legend and fashion designer Lee Bowry, founding an underground club night and making a name in drag performance. He's best known in the art world for the bold graphic ink works that began in the 90s. He used to plaster photocopies of these on the walls of nightclubs, almost like a mini exhibition. The print in the Aberdeen collection is one of a series of alphabet works by Urquhart, which turns the primary classroom A's for Apple poster on its head. Back in 2004, he made his first one of these works called An Alphabet of Bad Luck, Doom and Horror. As you might have guessed from the title, that one begins with a bleeding figure impaled on the A for accident. Since then, Urquhart has produced alphabets featuring drag queens and celebrities, and he's particularly interested in unpicking the supposed glamour of Hollywood. He's made alphabets about Michael Jackson and Joan Crawford, which morbidly begins with A is for Axe. And he's focused on places that are romanticised by outsiders, such as Paris and Los Angeles.
His work has this wonderful sense of distillation, as though he's boiled a whole character down to his essential gestures.
This is Griffin Coe, art curator of Aberdeen Archives, Gallery and Museums.
When people come across a Donald Urquhart print for the first time, they're often surprised by how deceptively simple it looks. Just black ink on white paper, very little fuss. But then quite quickly how much personality and wit is hiding inside that simplicity.
Let's skip back a few years to 2011, the year Urquhart made Alphabet of Scotland. This was a significant year in Scottish politics, one which drastically altered the country's direction of travel. On the 5th of May that year, Scotland's parliamentary election took place, with the Scottish National Party winning a landslide of 69 seats. And this prompted the SNP to call a referendum on Scottish independence, which took place in 2014. The lead up to the referendum saw an increase in discourse around what Scotland was as a country and what it could be, and it was against this complex political background that Urquhart produced his Scottish alphabet. Yet, perhaps surprisingly, political figures make no appearance. He is more concerned with celebrities such as singer Lulu for the letter L, 007 Sean Connery for C, and actress Tilda Swinton for T.
What Urquhart does so well is tap into the public imagination of these figures, not just what they look like, but the aura they carry. If you look at it, for example, Tilda Swinton comes across with that cool, slightly otherworldly quality she's known for. There is a kind of elegant distance to her image that Urquhart captures with almost nothing, a few lines, and suddenly you're in her orbit. Connery, on the other hand, feels iconic in a different way, more cinematic, more rooted in mainstream appeal. And he brings in all sorts of questions about who gets held up as a national symbol and why.
Tilda Swinton's a tad unexpected to represent the letter T, given that tartan is one of Scotland's most globally potent visual symbols. However, Scotland's famous textile does make an appearance under the letter Y for Younger's Tartan Special, an ale popular in the late 70s with Scottish football fans, which featured a bright red and yellow tartan on its cans. Scotland's penchant for alcohol is also highlighted in the letter R, being represented by lovable sitcom character Ramsay Nesbitt, who famously drinks Buckfast tonic wine. While I is represented by Iron Brew, that most Scottish of fizzy drinks, with a handwritten note below the logo stating that it's great with vodka. But the unhealthy stereotypes don't stop there. E is represented by Hugh McGregor as his character Mark Renton in Trainspotting, high on ecstasy. D is a deep-fried map of Scotland, while poor singer Susan Boyle shown as a square sausage for S. Is Urquhart proud of these associations with Scotland? Or in the words of Robert Burns, is he simply attempting to see ourselves as others see us? As derogatory as this may sometimes be.
You can find out more about Aberdeen Archives, Gallery and Museums and hundreds of other collections on Bloomberg Connects, the free arts and culture platform. Download the app today.
So how did this work end up in the collection of Aberdeen Archives, Gallery and Museums then? Here's Griffin again to explain a bit more about the work's creation in the city's printmaking studio Peacock, and this artistic hub's relationship to the gallery and the city more widely.
Printmaking has been a major thread in Scotland artistic culture for decades, and largely because it's always been more open, more collaborative, and more accessible than many other art forms. That's why Peacock was such an important moment when it was opened in 1974, sitting right in Aberdeen historic quarter of the city. One of the defining aspects of Peacock impact has been its long-standing partnership with Aberdeen Art Gallery. The gallery has supported Peacock through exhibitions, acquisitions, and archival care, while Peacock has fed a continuous stream of new work, experimentation, and creative energy into the city. Donald didn't just come across Peacock by chance. I understand that he was actually introduced to Peacock through his cousin, which is quite fitting given how personal and culturally specific this project is. Peacock has always been very artist-led and experimental, so it wasn't about forcing the work into a house style. It was more about enabling Urquhart's voice to come through clearly in print. You can really feel that lovely mix of spontaneity and confidence in the finished print. It feels playful and immediate, but also very assured. If you look at it, there is no sense of compromise between the hand-drawn line and the printed outcome.
On his choices of symbols and cultural figures for his print, Urquhart explained to staff at Peacock that, as the alphabet evolved, I realised what a lowbrow bunch I was assembling. Our cultural identity is often as garish and lurid as bright tartans and blaring bagpipes. And so his lineup was no place for Greyfriars Bobby, John Knox and Mary Queen of Scots. The print takes a more subtle jab at this highbrow versus lowbrow debate with the choice of Jack Vetriano for V. A largely self-taught artist from Fife, Vetriano went on to become one of Britain's most commercially successful artists, with a print of his 1992 painting, The Singing Butler, becoming a bestseller in the UK. Yet many art critics have dismissed his work, calling it overly sentimental and nostalgic, as well as derivative. What does Griffin think of this?
I suppose it's going back to that sort of the immediacy. You know, if you go and ask people on the street, tell us your favorite artist, and that sort of appeal that he is looking for. So Vetriano will be one of, I would say, beloved artists, and everybody know his paintings. And if you look at it, you know, it's funny because I have to ask one of my colleagues, because I didn't grow up in Scotland as a child, so I don't know the Bruins. So when I look at Vetriano in the alphabet, my colleagues say, oh, actually, they are the character from the Bruins. So I have some homework to do, and I need to go and read all about the Bruins.
A closer look at Urquhart's inclusion of Vetriano shows that he cheekily brings the Singing Butler further down into lowbrow territory by redrawing the figures as Ma and Pa Brune in their bairn for the much-loved comic strip, which has depicted the shenanigans of a fictional working-class Scottish family since 1936. The Bruins isn't the only reference to Scotland's renowned comics, which are still published today by Dundee-based DC Thomson. The mischievous Oor Willie also makes an appearance on his bucket for O, and for G, there's a depiction of Nasher's Gallus Geggy, which refers in Scots language to the big flashy smile of the dog from the Beano. I can't help but wonder if these comics have been a big influence on Urquhart's illustrative style, and that's why they're so predominant. The inclusion of these comics also harks back to a particularly Scottish childhood, and several of the other choices included suggest we're getting an insight into Urquhart's own 1960s and 1970s working class upbringing, with references to slightly more niche cultural figures of this time, such as comedian Stanley Baxter and the Crankies, singers such as Moira Anderson, and actors like John Laurie, who appeared in the BBC sitcom Dad's Army as a stereotypically dour and pessimistic Scotsman. And there's Molly Weir, who appeared in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie alongside Maggie Smith. In Urquhart's print, however, Weir is accompanied by a box of flash, referring to a series of TV commercials in which she played an older Scottish housekeeper, showing her younger middle-class English employers how to clean. This seems a particularly idiosyncratic choice, which makes clear that not everything here is as globally known as Haggis and Robert Burns.
It makes room for something more current and arguably more honest. His Scotland is immediate and familiar. What's important, though, is that this isn't a parody. His style is illustrative without being cartoonish. The humor is subtle and knowing rather than mocking. He uses wit and irony, but there is also a genuine affection for his subjects, I think. That's what keeps the work from tipping into satire alone. It feels observant rather than dismissive. In doing that, The work makes a broader point. National identity isn't fixed. It's not always noble or tidy. It's shaped through everyday culture, shared jokes, public figures, and media spectacle, just as much as through history and landscape painting. In that sense, this print signals a shift away from reverence and towards a more self-aware, culturally fluid view of Scottishness. He's essentially saying this too is Scotland.
So maybe this isn't your typical Alphabet of Scotland, one you might expect in a school classroom. It's something more honest and maybe also more personal to Urquhart himself. There's a final clue in the artwork that points us in this direction. While the official title of the work is Alphabet of Scotland, down in the bottom left corner it actually says Donald Urquhart's Scottish Alphabet. This declaration is further emphasised by his choice for the letter U just above. Instead of something obvious like the unicorn, which is Scotland's national animal, Donald chooses Urquhart Castle, and this letter is cleverly placed at the start of the last line so it sits below N for Nessie, bringing both into one image, an illustration of the castle on the edge of Loch Ness where the mythical monster looms. Of course, Nessie is wearing a tartan "See You Jimmy" hat on her head. What else would you expect from a print by Donald Urquhart?
Your Art Unlocked is produced by Art UK, the online home of the UK's public art collection, supported by Bloomberg Connects. Explore more art at artuk.org.